Imagine trying to raise a baby with no crib, no formula, no pediatrician, no locked door, no clean water, and no way to Google whether a rash is normal. Now imagine doing that while the baby cannot walk, cannot feed itself, cannot stay quiet, cannot understand danger, and has the survival instincts of a drunk alarm clock. That is the strange thing about human childhood. It looks soft, it looks cute. But for most of human history, taking care of children was not a private family lifestyle. It was survival technology. A baby was carried, fed, watched, soothed, negotiated over, and protected from a world that had absolutely no interest in whether anyone had slept. Ancient humans probably did not raise children the way many modern people imagine. Not one isolated mother in a cave. Not a tiny nuclear family pretending the rest of the group was background scenery. That version feels obvious because modern life trains you to see parenting as a private project. Your child, your house, your problem. But the human child is suspiciously bad at being raised by one person. Human babies are helpless compared with many mammals. They arrive with huge needs, slow bodies, needy brains, and a talent for screaming exactly when silence would be useful. That helplessness is not a design flaw. Humans evolved large, flexible brains. But those brains needed years of feeding, teaching, and protecting before they became useful. So the real question is not just how ancient humans cared for children. The better question is how any child survived long enough to become human. The simple answer is mothers. And yes, mothers were central. Pregnancy, birth, nursing, and early bonding placed a brutal amount of biological weight on women's bodies. In a world without antibiotics or emergency rooms, childbirth itself could be dangerous. Nursing burned calories. Carrying a child through rough terrain was exhausting. A mother was keeping a tiny, unstable mammal alive with her own body. But that explanation has a problem. It is too small. In 2009, anthropologist Sarah Blaffer-Hrdy at the University of California, Davis argued in Mothers and Others that humans evolved as cooperative breeders, meaning children survived because care came from more than the biological mother. Grandmothers, siblings, fathers, aunts, older children, and unrelated group members could all become part of the child's survival system. That changes the picture, because now childcare is not just affection, it is social architecture. A baby had to read faces before it could speak. A toddler had to learn who was safe, who shared food, who got annoyed, who could be begged, and who might pick them up before they wandered into teeth, fire, water, or a very bad decision involving insects. Bring that back to you. Your need to be liked may have roots in a childhood system where being tolerated by several adults was not emotionally nice. It was life insurance. Now we should be careful. The evidence is messy. Ancient childcare does not fossilize neatly. A lullaby leaves no skeleton. A grandmother holding a baby leaves no perfect artifact. A teenager distracting a toddler while adults butcher an animal does not turn into a clean archaeological label. Maybe modern people look at hunter-gatherers, see sharing and closeness, and imagine the deep past was warmer than it really was. Maybe survival was harsher, tempers shorter, and care more practical than sentimental. Bones can show injury, teeth can show diet, tools can show skill. But they do not easily show who comforted a child after a nightmare. That skeptical case matters. Ancient humans were not magical forest therapists. They could be stressed, hungry, frightened, jealous, exhausted, and cruel. A crying baby in a dangerous place was a noise that could attract attention. Children were precious, but they were also expensive. They needed calories before they could contribute. They slowed movement, they got sick, they touched everything. In other words, they were children, so the past was not necessarily gentle. But the evidence still points towards something deeper than cold practicality. In 1991, anthropologist Barry Hewlett, then at Washington State University, reported observations of Aka forager fathers in Central Africa and found unusually intimate infant care, with fathers staying physically close to babies and holding them more often than many industrial societies expected. The point is not that every ancient father behaved like an Aka father. The point is that foraging life can allow father care to be immediate, physical, and ordinary, not just symbolic. That matters because children did not only need food, they needed bodies. Before strollers, the solution was contact. Babies were likely carried against skin, tied with materials that mostly vanished from the archaeological record, shifted from hip to back to arm, passed between caregivers, and kept close enough that distress could be answered fast. Not because ancient people had read attachment theory, because a baby left too far away was exposed. Food was another puzzle. Nursing was probably the first anchor, but not the whole answer. Weaning would have been slow, flexible, and dangerous. Children had to be moved from milk to mashed, chewed, pounded, softened, shared food. Someone had to make tough plants edible, crack bones, soften tubers, cool food, sort safe from poisonous, and stop a toddler from turning every mystery object into lunch. This is where the story stops being cute. A child's mind was being built inside a hazard map. Do not touch that. Stay near the fire, but not too near. Do not walk there. That animal is not funny. That berry is not food. That sound means hide. Modern children learn colors, numbers, and cartoon songs. Ancient children learned ecology with consequences. Play mattered too, but play was not separate from survival. Small children likely copied digging, carrying, throwing, tracking, gathering, tool use, baby care, and social negotiation long before anyone called it education. A child pretending to hunt was rehearsing a future body. Now zoom out. In 2011, anthropologist Kim Hill at Arizona State University and colleagues published a science study showing that hunter-gatherer bands were often made of many unrelated people, not just close kin. That finding complicates the cozy family myth. Ancient care may have depended not only on blood, but on friendship, exchange, marriage ties, reputation, and the daily politics of being useful to people who did not have to help you. Because childhood was not protected by love alone. It was protected by relationships. A mother's allies mattered, a father's reliability mattered, grandparents mattered, camp tolerance mattered, food sharing mattered, a child's own charm, health, timing, and noise probably mattered too, which is a horrifying sentence if you think about it for too long. Humans did not become human by making children independent quickly. They went the opposite way. They made childhood longer, brains slower, learning deeper, dependency more extreme, and then built social worlds capable of carrying that burden. The helpless child forced adults to become better cooperators. Or maybe the cooperators made the helpless child possible. There is still plenty we do not know. We do not know how every group balanced tenderness and discipline. We do not know how often children were indulged, punished, rescued, or mourned. We do not know how many ancient lullabies disappeared into air, except that babies still calm at rhythm, warmth, and voice. But the old stereotype is wrong. Ancient childcare was not primitive. It was complex, physical, social, exhausting, and intelligent. It was nursing and carrying, but also sharing and teaching. It was affection under pressure. It was survival wrapped in touch. So next time you see a baby gripping a finger like the entire universe depends on it, the strange part is not that the grip is so small. The strange part is that, for most of human history, it was probably gripping a whole community. That was the crib. That was the lock. That was the safety system. That was childhood.